Hey everyone, I'm Larry Walsh, and this is Changing Channels. In managed services, backup is just one of those offerings that's a part of the fabric of everything. It is so mainstay, it is so common, it's just taken for granted. And in fact, over the years, the number of backup providers selling with and through managed service providers have consolidated down to just a handful now. It has become that mature of a segment. And it's almost as if it's been locked up. At least that's what the conventional wisdom would have you. Now, the MSPs that I've talked with have told me that they're tired, they're fatigued by the lack of innovation. And not only lack of innovation, but also somewhat being taken for granted by many of the incumbents. And this has been the entry point for a new company, and that company is Slide. Slide is the product of somebody who is well versed in managed services and in backup, Austin McChord. And if you haven't heard of him, many of you have. Austin is the founder of Datto. And Austin built Datto. He literally coded the first products in his basement, and it blossomed from there to become a unicorn. Not only was it a unicorn, I mean, did it get that treasured valuation, but it went public under the ticker MSP, and it was ultimately acquired by Kaseya. Now, there's some issues with that, and we'll get into that in the podcast. But for now, let's just focus in on where it's been. Slide is about a year old, and it's growing fast. They already have hundreds of MSPs signed up underneath them around the world, and they're expanding internationally. And they're doing that in a segment that seemed, as I said, pretty locked up. And the way that they're growing is that they're focusing in on fundamentals. They're taking the lessons, the success lessons and the mistakes that they made in the past, plus applying new innovations while remaining focused on what it takes to work with MSPs to build a company and to grow in the market. So we thought it'd be a good idea to have Austin McChord, as well as Michael Fass, the co-founder and CEO of the company, join us here on Changing Channels to talk about what Slide is, where it's going, and what we can expect next. This is Changing Channels. I'm Larry Walsh. Let's get into it. Austin McChord, Michael Fass, welcome to Changing Channels.
Welcome. Thank you for having us.
Thank you very much.
Oh, it's great to have you both. I've been looking forward to having this conversation because, look, from my perspective, backup is one of these things that's just been a part of the fabric of everything for a long time. And Austin, you did a great job when you founded Datto to actually make it more mainstream, particularly among the MSPs, and giving a very stable product. But at the same time, it's like one of these categories that feels so mature and so wrapped up. To see a new entry in it seems a bit almost counterintuitive. So I want to start with the origin of this. So where did Slide come from? You know, it's a little more than a year old, probably conceptually older than that. What was the inspiration behind it, and what's the aspiration for the company?
Sure. I mean, I think at its core, there are two pieces that kind of came together at the same time. The first is a sea change in technology and sort of realizing that the pricing around NVMe storage and the type of compute that you could buy had really changed and opened up a new opportunity around what was actually possible to be built. And then the second is that the culture and the partner focus that was so important to us at Datto, I really felt like had eroded away in Datto's new home at Kaseya. And so this opportunity to create a company that has that deep alignment with MSPs, that's really trying to deliver for MSPs, and then to take advantage of the change in technology and build a product showing how backup can drive value, not just in a disaster, but all the time, was really exciting. And Michael and I just felt like we had to do it.
All right. So since Austin brought up Kaseya and the relationship there, Michael, let's just talk about this real quick. Is that your venture has not gone unnoticed? There is some contention between you and Kaseya over this. You know, can you talk a little bit about, you know, where you stand on that?
Yeah, we can talk about it a little. We obviously we were sued for the claims relate to violating Kaseya trade secrets. Suffice it to say that we believe very strongly that the claims are false, and that will be proven correctly, will be proven the right way in court. We believe in the system, and I think the system is working. I'll just say that.
Yeah. I think it's worth noting, though, is that these things happen all the time. And so it's like, what is it? There's 7 original jokes. There's 5 chords. So, I mean, at some point, everything's going to have a similar sound, but you can still have original ideas.
So there's a huge difference between a business function, something like BCDR, which exists in many industries, at many stacks in the enterprise stack, in the Uber enterprise stack, in the SMB stack. And so the idea of BCDR is not a novel idea, the business function. The way in which that's executed, based on newer technology and the coming together of very bright people who care about that business function, that problem can be solved in many different ways, and we've shown a different way to solve it.
Yeah.
Perhaps a nerdier example is that F-150 and Rivian might look relatively similar. They're both pickup trucks, but under the hood, they're 2 completely different animals.
I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, I don't think there's anything under the Rivian hood because it's all underneath the
No,
chassis,
there's
right?
storage.
Yeah.
There's a trunk.
Yeah.
So, but Austin, I think it's apt to talk about that, though, because it's not just in the contention between you and Kaseya, but just from your origins. And I remember, when you first broke onto the scene, I mean, and you literally grew out of Datto, out of your basement, to create a unicorn that then became the standard setter for backup and BCDR in managed services. What's the difference between what you did before and going through this clean room experience of developing Slide?
I mean, I have a lot less hair, and a lot more experience in just sort of running companies, in building teams, in getting where we want to go. And I think that I've got a really good understanding of the problem and of what the market wants. And so that combination of both understanding, what the MSP industry is interested in, and at the same time having a good idea of where the technology is headed. Being able to start from a clean slate is like an incredible gift, and allows us to pick, different choices. And it's, again, like, to go back to the, Rivian and F-150 example, like it's very hard to make the F-150 into an electric car, and like Ford tried and gave up. But it's different if you're starting from scratch. And so this starting from scratch, like, is a huge gift in that sense, and allows us to make fundamentally different choices about how the product works, so that it's set up for where technology is going over the next 20 years, instead of trying to drag decisions that you might have made in a basement 20 years ago into the future.
And you did start, I mean, with Datto in mind, you did discover MSPs and built around MSPs. What lessons did you take forward from that? When you say you built Slide, what did you learn? And more importantly, what were the mistakes you made before that you're not carrying forward into the future?
Let me comment on this one. I think, first of all, we're going to make brand new mistakes in this venture, right? So, we weren't really focused on mistakes that we made in the past, rather thinking about first principles of what the future product would look like. I think that's a really important distinction. And our team has deep experience either working inside MSPs, talking to MSPs, engaging with MSPs, creating products for MSPs, hearing their feedback. And we want to sort of step in their shoes and empathize with their workflows, and also anticipate what their future workflows, operating systems, operating styles are going to be. And so when we built Slide, we were thinking about that future MSP.
Well, it's interesting you talking about the future because at one point, again, just going back into your past, and I don't want to just keep making this broad comparisons, but a lot has changed over the last 20 years. And that back then, the idea of backing up into the cloud was still a novelty. And Austin, I remember being in your Connecticut offices, going, okay, so wait, you're backing up to the cloud, but you have these local controllers, and it was a little, as a non-techie like me, it was a little confusing. But today, it's a lot different. You have a different operating landscape, a different set of circumstances, particularly now that backup is now considered more a part of the security family than just data integrity. And you're dealing with issues like ransomware and now emerging AI threats. How does that factor into the way you're developing the product and your go-to-market?
I mean, it's a core component, it's the lifeblood of it. And thinking about, you know, the utility of backup and how it's changed that when we started, or like when I entered this industry, the big threats were that your hard drive would crash, right? That the RAID array didn't work, or that you installed a Windows update and Windows didn't boot up. Um, Thankfully, like those things have become a lot rarer, but they've been replaced by like a much scarier set of things associated with sort of the entire cyber surface area, whether that's ransomware, whether that's a security component, whether it's looking at all this AI stuff. And so that value of backup, had gone from this, well, maybe I'll put it on tapes and like hide it in a basement somewhere to like, oh no, I need this and I need this directly near my production and I need to be able to come back from it very quickly. And this idea that I can use backup to help get my forward posture better, that I can use it as a way to sort of test where I am, I think becomes even more important as all this AI stuff is moving. And like, I look at the announcements that happened just this week with what's going on in Anthropic, and that the next 12 months is going to be a sea change in that everyone will be given sort of nation state level hacking capability. And that the software that we run, we think about it and it's like, okay, I have Salesforce or I have some tool that's running on my desktop, but like all of these tools are made up of tons and tons and tons of tiny components. And any one of those components kind of failing can then unleash sort of a much bigger attack surface. And this idea that all these components are going to be found to be vulnerable is going to be an unnerving time, and it's going to be pretty wild. And this is where backup serves as that last line of defense, and particularly having immutable backups. So ensuring that like they can't be changed, and data can't be manipulated or erased, and ensuring that you have encrypted backups, that everything is secure, and those two things are going to matter the most. And then how fast, obviously, can you restore from them?
So, Michael, everything that Austin just said is the stuff that keeps me awake at night. Because I wasn't at RSA this year, but I did see what happened. Because the initial chatter about what Anthropic was doing relative to security did level a pretty good hit against the market caps of a lot of the publicly traded security companies. And one of the things I've been telling people is that if you think AI is going to be a security risk, just wait until you combine it with quantum computing. And when that goes mainstream over the next couple of years, the 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 thing that I find interesting in managed services, though, is that we're at a point where the MSPs are both facing these new both evolving operational needs and threats, and at the same time, they're also trying to consolidate because they're oversubscribed, particularly within backup vendors. And we're still seeing MSPs out there that are working with 3 and 4 different backup vendors just because they want different price points. Do you see this as an inflection point or an opportunity? Because as I've heard you both talk about technical deficits, is that the MSPs need to go through a refresh cycle anyways. Are you hitting the market at the time where that's the market need plus the technology innovations are going to create new opportunities for the MSPs?
Yes. Opportunities and perils. MSPs are The number one job is to protect their clients' digital assets. Um, Austin mentioned this, and I agree with him 100%. Backup is the last line of defense, and it's in a lot of ways the most important line of defense. Um, MSPs have lots of different backup slash BCDR solutions in place from lots of different eras, tech stacks, depending on the environment they're protecting, et cetera. Um, most of these products that are in the MSP space were developed in that sort of 20-year vintage. And so it's imperative for MSPs to begin to standardize on future-looking, forward-looking, most advanced uh, BCDR and backup suite. We're standing ready, willing, and able to provide that for MSPs, and it's resonating a lot with the market. And moreover, MSPs, not only do they have to protect digital assets, they have to get on board with the wave of automation and AI enablement that's coming. They have to get it. They have to get on board with it inside their own businesses, so that they're eating their own dog food, so that then they can provide those services to SMBs that are going to be reliant on that more and more. And the ones that succeed in that process are going to win.
You talked to both. I've heard you talk about bringing the magic back to this equation, this entire idea. And one of the things that Michael, I saw you at Right of Boom a couple of months ago,
Yeah.
and one of the things I was picking up on from the MSPs that were there is that they were fatigued. They keep hearing the same messages of, well, here's all the great things we're going to do for you from companies like yours. Not you specifically, but companies like yours. It's like, oh, we're going to do all these great things for you. They're seeing costs go up, but they're not seeing innovation happen. They're not feeling like the rest of the market is keeping up. What is the magic that Slide is infusing into this? What's the spark you're bringing back to the managed services community?
Well, so like there's a couple of key things for us. The magic. It comes down to the values of the organization and what we're trying to achieve. We're trying to create value for MSPs, to make their businesses more valuable, and to make the services they provide to their end clients more valuable. So we want to add value, and by adding value, rising tides will lift all ships. We believe that. We've experienced that. That's the playing card that we play, right? That's our philosophy. I think industry consolidation has created a somewhat of a dichotomy in MSP land, where you have some vendors whom I believe are focused on adding value for MSPs and being part of a rising tide. And I feel like some other vendors are more focused on extracting value from MSPs. And I think the ones that are looking out for the future and trying to create value for MSPs are going to be successful. I think we're going to be successful because of it. It all comes down to the values. And so when we think about bringing back the magic, we spend a lot of time thinking about how to make MSPs' lives better. And we spend a lot of time thinking about how our staff delivers that. So you have to engage your staff in a certain way. You have to have a series of values that they can grab onto and believe in. And then that translates into how the organization connects with our partners. And we call them partners because we want to partner with them.
Mm-hmm.
Customer is their customer. And we partner with them to make them heroic and help them build their business and deliver value to their customer.
Michael, you just said one word you just used just made made a light bulb go off. So two of the best books I've read this year were In Shitification and The Age of Extraction. And I know exactly what you're talking about. is that, it's not just a consolidation of the industry. It's also, you're seeing a lot of consolidation of products into what everybody wants to describe as platforms, and then prices go up. And, and again, what the MSPs will say and customers are saying, the value doesn't follow. How much of a threat is that extraction to the relationship between vendors and the MSPs, Austin?
I think the extraction threat is existential for MSPs, and that if their vendors are in extraction mode, like they reduce the competitiveness of the MSPs, they reduce the profit margins of the MSPs, and ultimately, like they reduce the utility that an MSP can provide. And so, if all of an MSP's vendors are in that extraction mode, the MSP is going to get squeezed until they just don't exist. Um, and that's, a non-zero reason to like making slide happen is that we don't want to be in extraction mode. We want to be in building and delighting for our customers. And we want to stay in that mode kind of forever and not have to make that switch to extraction.
Is that the secret behind your rapid growth? I mean, you've gone from 0 to more than 1,000 partners in just a little bit over a year, and it continues to grow. At least what we're hearing and seeing. Is that part of what's happening? Is that because you have that different value proposition and that aspiration that the MSPs find it attractive?
I mean, I think the values is the foundation.
Mm.
And then we use that and build an innovative product to overtop it. And the product doesn't suck. And you combine that with a time period of like, hey, this is an area where we need to be paying attention to back up in a time where like the cyber landscape is changing. And that combination is the reason that we've grown so fast, is that MSPs like what we do and they like working with us. And that combination leads to a lot of uptake.
So how do you maintain this? I mean, one of the things that you've both proven before is that you do have the ability to build a large partner network globally and continue to build up into, again, before Datto went public, it was a unicorn, it was acquired, it was a big deal. How do you continue to grow at this pace without breaking the principles that you're built on?
Well, you have to work a lot. You have to work really hard at it. I mean, that is, you have to tend to the garden. And I don't want to be speaking in axioms, but um, I touch base with the folks that are delivering that delight and that value all the time, and they share with me what they're dealing with, and it's on me, it's on Austin, it's on the management team to continue that flow of empathy through our team, so that we all feel the same value, and then deliver that value to the partner. And that doesn't happen on autopilot. That is not an autopilot.
Mhm.
The until the robots take over, humans need to be cared for and fed. And so our job is to be in touch with our staff, be in touch with our partners on a relationship basis, on a human level. And I gotta say, like, Larry, that is scalable. You just have to work at it.
Yeah. All right. So, I do want to ask those, if when the robots are taking over, do you have a date that we can schedule that in? Because I'd really like to know that part.
You'll be the first to know.
All right. So technology is one thing. And I think, I will, regardless, is that I always say the same thing to people. I trust you have a good product. If you didn't have a good product, then you wouldn't be in business. But that only takes you so far. I know, Austin, there are plenty of bad products out there. But what are the lessons that you could give others in your position, or to other channel leaders that are out there trying to maximize the benefit or tap into the power of the MSPs or the reseller community? What are the things that you take to say that, these are the essential things you really have to master?
I mean, I think you got to give more than you get. Like, and you've got to give advice, you've got to help, you've got to listen, and you've got to make sure that you're also giving margin for MSPs to make money, and that they have to run a business. And a lot of people, who are new to the channel look at it and they think of them as like they're just a VAR, or they're just there to lift and ship product. And it's like, no, they're the actual keeper of the flame. They're the ones that are owning that relationship with those small businesses. And it takes time and energy and effort on their part to own that relationship. And you need to give them space to own that relationship, and you need to give them margin to own that relationship. And those things are really essential from a business perspective, in order for the MSPs to be successful and adopt and scale out your product.
All right, so guys, I do want to end on a high note here. I'm sure we're going to be touching base on a regular basis. Slide only has one place to go, which is ironic to say Slide is only going to go up. But we get together and we talk again a year from now, 2 years from now. Where are you going to be? What's Slide going to look like, and what's your partner community going to be like?
Well, we're going to be more global. We are global. We recently opened our EMEA office and have staff operating in the Europe space and in the UK. But the world's a big place, so we'll be more geographically expanded. We will have more products available to MSPs, and the products that we have will have more fulsome features. We'll have more delights, opportunities, and we'll be more and more relevant to the modern workflows that MSPs are going to need to adopt in order to thrive. That's, I think, the most important piece. Our product is built for the future. It is not 20-year-old foundation that you have to duct tape and baleen wire things to. We're building a product that was built for the future. And so we are going to keep going up and to the right. I expect that we're going to accelerate in that direction. And the more we create value for the MSP, the more that will be the case. And so that's what we're focused on in order to do that.
Okay. And Austin, I've saved the last question for last for you. Is as I look around the market, it is getting more crowded, more competitive. The stakes are getting higher because the technology is getting more complex, and automation seems to be creeping in. Michael talked about when the robots take over. We can joke about that, but the reality is that automation is getting easier, and that does have people questioning the viability of the managed services model going into the future. Do you perceive, looking out a little bit further, 3-5 years out, that the managed services segment will still have the same purpose and the same value as it has today?
I mean, I think the managed services segment will be essential in 3 to 5 years from now. And as more and more of businesses' interactions are with other robots, like, you're going to want to interact with a person. And that relationship, like, the best part of business is you get to pick who you do business with. And the MSP's job is to help all of these small businesses navigate through this world of AI, through all these changing things that are coming. And so they'll be essential in that. Will they deploy automation to reset passwords? Absolutely. Will they deploy automation to, fix all kinds of different issues and automatically patch stuff? You bet. But that core question of, like, what are the right tools for me? What's right for my business? I don't think that that's the kind of thing that people are just going to outsource to Claude and let it rip. They need a real relationship that's built over time with a human being, because those businesses are run by human beings. And I think that MSPs will be so important in that process. And the companies that think that they can just do everything with robots, like, risk that at their own peril. That, like, I don't think that will be successful.
Well, I really hope that future comes to fruition. I do believe that we should be automating to make people more human, or give us more time to be more human. So, Austin McChord, Michael Fass, thanks for joining us here in Change Channels. It's been great having you.
Thank you,
Thank
Larry.
you.
Well, that's about all the time we have for this edition of Changing Channels. Again, I want to thank our guest, Austin McChord, the co-founder and chairman of Slide, and Michael Fass, the co-founder and CEO of Slide, for joining us. And as always, I want to thank all of you for joining us. We do this podcast so that everyone can learn from others' successes and apply those lessons forward. If you like what we're doing here, please hit like, hit subscribe, tell your friends. Also, check out all the research, best practices, guides, and services we offer over at Channelnomics. We are here to help service the channel community and help build better channels for vendors, distributors, and of course, all the partners in the market. Until next time, I'm Larry Walsh.